All right, welcome back to the Jesse Spec YouTube channel. In the two previous videos, you've seen what's going to happen to my racing car in regards to wheels, tires and suspension. But now, what is the most used part and that suffers the most after the tires, or if not the same thing as the tires? It's brakes. So let me show you what my setup is in brakes this year for my Slalom Racing Championship in Switzerland. So without further ado, join me, and after the intro, let's take a look at it.
All right, let's take a look at what we have here. So these are the Dixcel Specom Beta brake pads that I have chosen for the front and the rear, and I am proud to announce that the Dixcel factory in Japan is my third sponsor for the 2023 racing season. So now I'm about to install my new brake pads, and as you can see, I used the same compounds front and rear. That is something that seems very normal, but I see on a daily basis people who put more aggressive pads in the front or slotted rotors in the front and not in the rear, and I am convinced that is the perfect way to upset your brake balance. So anyway, don't do that, kids, and make sure to keep coherent choices in your brake pads front and rear. So as you can see here, I'm holding a bottle of the Dixcel Racing brake fluid. It is called 328 Racing, and it holds up to 328 degrees Celsius before it starts to boil, which is literally almost impossible to make them boil unless you're a total idiot who doesn't know how to feel that your brakes are about to cook and fail completely. So anyway, let's get started and remove the stock brake pads that I must say are really good. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to recuperate the heat shims that are on the stock brake pads and put them on my Dixcel pads, because as you know, there is extreme heat going into the brake discs and the brake pads, and the fact of having these little shields there allows you to not cook through your dust boots and everything that are in the brake caliper. So that's really important to reinstall them on your brake pads. Another interesting fact that you can see are the stock brake pads have a sort of, on the sides they are sort of shaved off in order to reduce noise when you are driving with the car. And the racing brake pads, they don't have this. And that is really for noise reasons that people do that. But in the end, you can see that brake pads or brakes, the more surface you have, the more brake force you have. Which means that in the end, there is no point in removing some of the material, because that is less surface of brake pads on your pads. So for race cars, do not do that, even if the noise are a little bit annoying. After a little bit of driving, I can already tell you that the Specom Beta, so let me go into more detail what these pads are about. So they are carbon semi-metallic, and they have an effective heat range of 200 to 900 degrees. I do have to say that surprisingly, even on the very cold usage, there is absolutely no problem. And they brake perfectly even from cold. So let me walk you through some of the specs of those brake pads. So as you can see, they are carbon semi-metallic. They have a heat range from 200 to 900 degrees. And they have an initial bite of 0.48 mu and an average bite of 0.4 to 0.43. So that shows basically in a very flat brake curve, like the one in blue that you can see, and the other ones are much steeper, and which gives you actually a little bit less stable performance over prolonged stunts. So this is why I chose these brake pads. And I still, to be honest, haven't seen the limit of those brake pads on my car. So that is really amazing. And yes, they are expensive. They're roughly 400 per axle, but boy are they a step up compared to other brake pads that I have used, even within the Dixcel range, such as the Z types that you can see here, or Z types if you're from the US. These are graphic metallic, and in comparison to the Specom Betas, they actually start from 0 degrees, so much better for street use. and they still go all the way up to 850, which is a really broad heat range that you can use. They have a maximum of 0.67 mu and the average one is 0.57. So we can see they have on average a higher friction coefficient. However, as you can see on this graph, the Z-Type is more of a sprint race kind of pad, whereas the Specom Beta is leaning more towards an endurance pad, but their friction level is still higher in the Specom Beta. And generally speaking, the Z-Type is more of an all-rounder, and it definitely doesn't brake as strong when you're really with hot brakes. And I definitely could tell a huge difference with the Specom Beta. Under prolonged hard load, the brake performance would not change at all. So it was very consistent and no failure whatsoever. Another interesting thing that I picked up is, as you can see, the stock brake pads of the GR Yaris do not have a slot in the middle, whereas the Specom Betas do. And usually that little slot in the middle is made for heat dissipation and removing debris in the pads.
As you can see, my brake setup is pretty simple and straightforward. And honestly, now we're in June. I installed the brakes in March. Lots of things happened, lots of races happened, and I am absolutely stunned by how well these endurance brake pads hold. Like, unbelievable. I could not destroy them. I could not overheat them. I have the Dixcel brake fluid and I have the Fischer brake lines. They are not a sponsor of mine. However, Dixcel is. And I am very thankful because this is clearly a pair of pads that are above of my budget, and I can see really how powerful they are. And there's an easy saying is, you get what you pay for. So in general, I mean, you cannot generalize, but many times when you pay an expensive price, there is a reason behind it. And I can tell you, I've had loads of different brands of brakes, big brake kits, all kinds of stuff. And this is really, you cannot do any simpler. Brake pads, fluid, and the brake hoses, braided ones. That's all you need. Man, like on this car, it feels like a beast on the brakes. So now I need to learn how to use it and find the limits of this setup. But to be honest, I haven't found it yet because it's that good, to be honest. So thank you so much for watching this. In the next episode, we'll be taking a look at carbon fiber parts, my last sponsor that I could get this year. And by the way, I did not say that, but if you're a company, any kind of business that wants to support Hanshin Racing or Jesse Spec or anything, make sure to contact me because we are, of course, looking for supporters. And the more supporters we have, the more crazy things we can do and the more out of hand things can get. So make sure to, if you have people, if you want to recommend any business or something that maybe would want to partner up with me, make sure to get in contact. I would be very honored to have any help I can get. So without further ado, thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.